Shennong, that is, the old Chinese Emperor Yan, also known as the Shennong clan, a mythical figure of the Han nationality. Birthday, April 26 in the ancient calendar. Legend has it that he was born on the bank of Jiangshui in today's Beiji City, China 5,500 to 6,000 years ago. He is the sun god in ancient legends, one of the 3 emperors and 5 emperors in ancient China, the inventor of agriculture, and the ancestor of medicine. Emperor Yan is revered in folklore as one of the ancestors of the Chinese nation. The era of written records is after the Warring States period. He is not only the agricultural ancestor who taught humans how to sow 5 grains, but also the inventor of medicine who taught people to taste herbs and cure diseases. He can not only protect agricultural harvests and people's health, but is also regarded as a patron saint by medical centers and drug stores. It is honored by the world as the king of medicine, the king of 5 grains, the first emperor of 5 grains, the emperor of Shennong, and so on. Legend has it that Shennong's appearance is very strange, with a human body and the head of a cow, and a thin body. Except for the limbs and head, the body is transparent, so the internal organs are clearly visible. At the age of 3, Zhi Jiarong grew up to be 8 feet 7 inches tall, with a long face and big lips. Shennong tasted all kinds of herbs. If the herb was poisonous, his internal organs would turn black after taking it. Therefore, it is easy to know which herb affects which part of the human body. Therefore, there is a legend in ancient times that Shennong tasted 100 herbs and encountered 70 poisons in one day. There are different opinions about the cause of Shennong's death. It is said that Shennong finally died because of taking too many poisons and accumulating too much poison. It is said that one day when he was tasting grass, he accidentally ate poisonous grass Cercis perforatum and died. In ancient times, grains and weeds grew together, and medicines and flowers bloomed together. No one could tell which were edible grains and which were medicinal herbs that could cure diseases. The people of the Li people live by hunting, and the hunting of birds in the sky is getting less and less, and the hunting of animals in the ground is getting rarer, so people have to go hungry. If someone suffers from sores and diseases, there is no doctor or medicine, and the skin will peel off even if he is not dead. Shennong saw the sufferings of the common people and felt pain in his heart. How to heal the people? Shennong thought hard for 3 days and 3 nights, and finally came up with a solution. On the 4th day, he led a group of villagers from his hometown Lishan in Suizhu to the mountains in the northwest. They walked for a long time, their legs became swollen and their feet confused, but they still didn't stop. They walked for 7 to 49 days and came to a certain place. I saw high mountains peak after peak, valleys one after another, and the mountains were covered with exotic flowers and plants, and the fragrance could be smelled from a long distance. Shennong and the villagers were walking forward when suddenly a group of wolves, tigers, and leopards jumped out from the canyon and surrounded them. Shennong immediately asked the villagers to wave their whips and beat the beasts. After one group was beaten away, another group came up again, and they fought for 7 days and 7 nights before driving the beasts away. Those tigers, leopards, and pythons were scarred by the magic whip. Later, it gradually turned into markings on the skin. At this time, the villagers said that it was too dangerous here, and advised Shennong to go back. Shennong shook his head and said, "I can't go back. The people of the Li people are hungry and have no food, and those who are sick have no medical treatment. Can we go back?" He led the way into the canyon and came to the foot of a big mountain. Half of this mountain is inserted in the clouds, and it is surrounded by knife-cut cliffs. There are mossy waterfalls hanging on the cliffs, and the water is smooth. It seems that there is no ladder to climb up. The villagers advised him again, "Forget it, let's go back as soon as possible. Shennon shook his head, I can't go back. The Li people are hungry and have no food, and the sick have no medical treatment. Can we go back on a small rocky mountain, facing the high mountain, look up, look down, look left, look right, think of ideas, think of ways. Later, people called the small mountain where he stood Wangnong Pavilion. Suddenly, he saw a few golden monkeys crawling along the high-hanging ancient vines and the rotten logs lying on the side of the cliff. Shennon had an idea, and there it is. He immediately called the villagers, told them to chop wood poles, cut vines, and lean against the cliffs to build a shelf. One layer was built every day, from spring to summer, from autumn to winter, regardless of wind and rain. It was still snowing and freezing, and it took a whole year to build 360 floors before reaching the top of the mountain. According to legend, the scaffolding used by people to build buildings later was learned from Shennon. Shennon led the villagers, climbed the wooden frame, and went to the top of the mountain. The mountain is really a world of flowers and plants, red, green, white, yellow, various colors, densely packed. Shennon was very happy. He told the villagers to beware of wolves, insects, tigers, and leopards, and picked flowers and plants by himself, and put them in his mouth to taste. In order to taste the herbs here, find food and medicine for the people, Shennon asked the villagers to plant a few rows of fir trees on the mountain to make a city wall to prevent wild animals, and to build thatched huts inside the wall. Later, people called the place where Shennon lived Wooden City. During the day, he led the villagers to taste the herbs on the mountain. At night, he asked the villagers to build a bonfire, and he recorded it in detail by the light of the fire, which ones are bitter, which ones are sweet, which ones are hot, which ones are cool, and which ones are delicious. Alleviating hunger and what can cure diseases are clearly written. Once, he put a piece of grass in his mouth and tasted it, and suddenly he was dizzy and fell down. The villagers hurriedly helped him to sit up. He knew that he had been poisoned, but he could no longer speak, so he had to use his last bit of strength to point to a bright red Ganodermal lucidum in front of him, and then to his mouth. The villagers hurriedly chewed the red Ganodermal lucidum in their mouths and fed it to him. Shennon ate the Ganodermal lucidum, the poisonous gas was relieved, his head was not dizzy, and he could talk. Since then, people have said that Ganodermal lucidum can bring the dead back to life. The villagers were worried that it would be too dangerous for him to taste grass like this, and they all advised him, let's go back down the mountain. He shook his head again, I can't go back. The Li people are hungry and have nothing to eat, and those who are sick have no medical treatment. Can we go back? After finishing speaking, he continued to taste the herbs. After tasting the flowers and plants in one mountain, he went to another mountain to taste them. He still used wooden poles to build a frame to climb up. I have been tasting it for 49 days, and I have traveled all over the mountains here. He tasted that wheat, rice, millet, beans, and sorghum can satisfy hunger, so he asked the villagers to take the seeds back and let the people plant them. This is the later 5 grains. He tasted 365 kinds of herbs, wrote Shennong's Materia Medica, and asked the villagers to take them back to treat diseases for the people all over the world. After tasting all kinds of herbs, Shennon found 5 grains to satisfy the hunger and herbs to heal the sick for the common people. He came to Husheng village and prepared to go back down the mountain. He looked around, and the wooden frames built all over the mountain were gone. It turned out that those wooden poles that built the frame took root on the ground, sprang out buds in the rain, and after a long period of time, they grew into a vast forest. Shennon was in a difficult situation, when suddenly a group of white cranes flew up from the sky, and took him and several other villagers to the heavenly court. Since then, Huishengji has been full of fragrance all year round. In order to commemorate Shennong's achievements in tasting hundreds of herbs and benefiting the world, the common people named this vast forest Shennongshi, and changed the Husheng village where Shennong ascended to heaven to Liuxiang village.